Okay, everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be doing a FanDuel review for today, which is Tuesday. Bobby is probably not going to be joining us today. He's traveling back from that wedding from yesterday, the Baby Grand wedding. Baby Grand was an old poker backy of mine and friend of Bobby. He was at that wedding, and he was able to join us for the DraftKings review yesterday. Yesterday was not a good day for me, results-wise. I missed out on a couple of late bits of news because I was out, and it cost me. And it's, I did try to play 150 lineups last night, and it's not easy. I have to tell you, for those of you that are, those types of people that say, well, I would win if I was only able to enter all those lineups that the experts enter. I'm not saying it's not the right way to go. It's just not that simple to just put in 150 lineups. It's actually the most interesting part of it for me because it lets you do some kind of advanced portfolio management techniques and things like that. And one of these days I'll go over a little bit more of that. But it's very difficult to do it efficiently and react to news all at the same time. So it is definitely a mixture of art and science and being able to really, really jump around and adapt very efficiently. And if you're going to play on DraftKings and do 150 lineups, you're also kind of tied to the concept of being around the computer and making it really an all-night affair. Because if you really want to be efficient about it, you will make changes along the way based on results, based on late news and things like that. So it's definitely not simple and it's definitely not easy. But I definitely do think that it is worth the effort because if you do enter a bunch of lineups, it allows you to diversify in a nice way if you're going to really want to, get that top spot in the GPP. So with that said, today we're going to do FanDuel, and I'm going to do it a little bit differently, not completely differently, but for those of you that have seen my videos before, I like to kind of, on the one hand, go game by game, yet on the other hand, I like to take the whole slate. On the other hand, on FanDuel, I like to go position by position. And also, I like to go for those late games first, just because those I feel as though the late night games are underappreciated and underowned, especially on FanDuel, because on FanDuel, with the inability to be flexible because of early lock, people are afraid of late news coming in to screw up your late game exposure. So they're going to be lower owned than maybe they otherwise could be. So let's take a look and see if I can combine all of those things to create kind of a different type of approach to FanDuel. So the first thing I did was I put in these two plays from the late game because I do think that these are probably two of the strongest plays at their relative positions, and they do come from the same game. De'Aaron Fox is rating to be probably the best point guard play on the whole slate by a pretty decent amount, if you want to know the truth. His ownership is going to be up there, but it's certainly not going to reflect the real strength of the play, as far as I'm concerned, at least. So he's someone I want to plug in if I can. And this other play, Harry Giles at power forward, is very interesting. You blink, you miss the All-Star break, you miss a couple of slates, and all of a sudden you miss the idea that they're starting to give Harry Giles real minutes. And I have to say, until Rashard Holmes comes back, if he's really going to be on the downside of 24 minutes and the upside of 30, 4K is kind of a steal. I will say that with a little bit of caution, with Alex Len back, it does provide at least a road for him to fail, because certainly Alex Len could get minutes, and if he's playing well, Harry Giles could sit. That's just the way it goes. But at 4K, I do think that he's a very, very strong play. Now, it would be nice if we were able to run it back with some other Golden State guys. But the thing is that there's a decent amount of uncertainty with the Golden State lineup. So Marquise Chris and Draymond Green at the time of this recording are both still listed as questionable. And whether they play or not is really going to drive the viability of some of these Golden State plays. Like, for example, right now, if you presume that Chris and Green are out, then you have a really, really strong power forward play in Eric Pascal who you could play at, what is he, 4,500 or something like that, right? But that's presuming both those guys are out. If both those guys play, then he almost becomes unplayable, right? So you really have to kind of watch that news. And this is, the tricky part with FanDuel. This is a late game, so what do you do if you don't get that news? Well, the quick answer is it really depends on the rest of the slate and the rest of the positions and whether you need to gamble on, someone being out. The problem, again, with you play Pascal, assuming those two guys are out and they both play, you're really in trouble, okay? So I don't know if I would play Pascal on the come, so to speak. Like, I don't know if I'd play him without knowing what else is going on. Andrew Wiggins looks to be an okay play, really regardless of whether both those guys are in. So he might be a guy you could throw in. But as you'll see, there'll be other small forwards, I think, that are a little bit better. I'm probably going to want to pay up at small forward for at least one of the spots. And there are probably some better values in there also. Another guy to keep an eye on, if in fact Chris and Green are out, is you might get another big minutes game from this Juan Toscano-Anderson guy, the small forward at 4K. So, again, he's somebody I think I'm only going to play if both those guys are out. But if they both are out, I mean, you're already starting to look at something you could do with kind of stacking this game a little bit. You could even put, if you really are into it, you could put 3 Golden State guys. You could put Wiggins in along with Toscano and Pascal, but all this presumes that those other 2 guys are out. Like if those 2 guys play, then we have, then this whole thing just doesn't work, right? So I just want to just give you that kind of what if scenario right off the bat. As long as I'm on this game, by the way, I'm really not a big fan of anybody else on the Sacramento side of it. Okay. What else can you do as far as you want to just stick by game, and we'll go back? No, let's stick to the positions for a second. So I did mention that De'Aaron Fox was considered a good, probably a very, very strong play. After him, it is kind of a drop-off, at least for me, with respect to values and stuff. And you get like a whole bunch of guys that are kind of similar. Like, I'll identify some of them. One is going to be Derrick Rose. I mean, he looks to be kind of an okay value at 4,900. The problem with Rose, and again, this is where I want to get greedy, is that just because he's just another play, right, among this group of guys we're going to get to in a minute, is I'd rather have him in lineups where I could run it back or correlate in some way. And unfortunately, the Denver side of it is really not very appealing to me. The only guy I would even consider playing on Denver would be Jokic as a really, really off-the-board pivot at center. And I don't know if I can even get there. So I will say that if you do play Derrick Rose, that you probably want to play it with that Jokic play at center. But other than that, I mean, Derrick Rose just looks like to be kind of a good play. So what I want to do is look at some other quote-unquote good plays and see if I can't do something better with the runbacks, right? So, like, the next guy I would look to is maybe Malcolm Brogdon as another good value there. And what you could do, now here's the thing, is that you want to run him back with someone on Charlotte. And the best guys, as far as I can see, for Charlotte is you could play Devontae Graham at small forward, at shooting guard. Just kind of looking at this. But if you do that, I mean, I rate him as like 7th or 8th best, so I guess it's not that bad. So that is one thing you could do. Like if you wanted to play Brogdon, then you probably want to run it back with someone like with Devontae Graham. My other favorite guy on Charlotte actually is going to be another point guard though. So my other favorite Charlotte guy is going to be Terry Rozier. So like one thing you could do is you could play Terry Rozier as your second point guard if you find another guy from Indiana that you could play, right? So one guy, again, if you want to do this, that looks pretty good for Indiana is now we're jumping to the power forward position, is you could play Domantas Sabonis. Now, he, again, doesn't rate to be my favorite play at power forward. I would prefer Anthony Davis, and we're going to get to him later. But, you know, if you want to play someone like Rozier, then I think you can go ahead and play him with Sabonis, okay? And that's just the way I think about the way you build a lineup and you build a portfolio is, you know, when all else fails, when all else is equal, then I would opt to the variation where you get some kind of correlation. Now, again, I'm already factoring in ownership as far as these plays. Like, Terry Rozier is not going to be that highly owned, nor would actually Brogdon going to be a little higher owned than that. But I think a combination of Rozier and Sabonis would be a decent low-owned pairing where you also get, or lower-owned pairing, where you also get that correlation, okay? As you'll see as we go through this slate, you know, there's not going to be that many just like 2% guys I'm going to be recommending, but there are guys that are going to be not the chalkiest guys that, again, if you can get a little extra juice by pairing them with somebody else, I think that's a good way to build. So we talked about Rozier a little bit. Good play. Brogdon, a good play also at point guard. The other guy, again, two other guys I want to mention. One is, again, from that Golden State game. Again, if you want to do this, if you really want to stack that game, you could play Kyle Bowman. And again, I prefer Draymond to be out for this because he can play some point and just take away some usage in general. But you could certainly do this. You could play, for example, Fox with Bowman and with Giles, right? And you can get something going there. Now, you might want a little more from Golden State than that, but Bowman certainly does look to be a very, very strong value play here, presuming, right, that those guys are out. And then the other thing that you can do is – oh, I got to pause this for just a second. Sorry about that. So the other way you could go on point guard is you could pay up a little bit and you could go for Kyle Lowry. And he looks to be like a decent play. And one thing that you could benefit from Kyle Lowry is you could run it back with Giannis. We're going to get to that in a minute because, you know, you're going to have to decide of where you spend up here. Giannis could be a very, very strong play at small forward if you don't want to play LeBron, right? And if you don't play LeBron, you probably, I won't say probably, it might be a decent idea to play Davis. I think one of those guys really does a number on New Orleans today. And so if you can get away with it, I mean, if you play Giannis, I don't know if you could also get away with playing LeBron, for example. And you certainly can't get away with playing Giannis, LeBron, and Lowry. I mean, now you're spending way up. But maybe you can get away with it. Or maybe what you could do is play Giannis and pay down at small forward, and let's see what else we can come up with at small forward. And then you could pay up for Davis at power forward, right? But you see where this is kind of coming together, right? So you could pay up for Lowry, and then you can play Giannis here in that small forward position, where I think you might want to do that anyway, okay? But as you'll see, there's another way that you can get that same correlation without having to spend the money on Lowry. And we'll get to that in a second. But for now, let's put back who you want to put back in here. Want to put Brogdon in? Again, it doesn't really matter who, you know, we're just kind of screwing around here. Show you some options. So I mentioned this Giannis Lowry pairing. Another thing you can do as we get into the shooting guard position is you could play who is probably the either first, second, or third ranked, it depends who you ask, guy from the shooting guard position from that same Milwaukee game, and that's going to be Fred VanVleet. Now you get the extra, you know, Fred VanVleet birthday narrative here, which I hate to say it, but nobody, not just, I use my curse words very, very sparingly, as you might know, but nobody gives a shit about his birthday when they're playing the freaking Bucks. Okay, this is a huge, enormous game, and there's no way that his birthday is going to impact how many shots he gets to take in this game. Like if this was home against, you know, name your terrible team, then yeah, maybe he'll be in a much better mood and shoot a lot, whatever. But this is a huge, huge game for Toronto. They're going to do whatever it takes to win. They don't give a crap whose birthday it is. But nonetheless, he is projecting to be a very, very strong play. So what you could do is you could put Van Vliet instead of Lowry along with Giannis. This way you could pay down a little bit for Rozier, still get the correlation with Sabonis, and we're kind of still off to the races here. Another guy who is rated to be the best play, in spite of his really, really big price at the shooting guard position, is going to be C.J. McCollum. Okay, despite the fact that his price has gone way up, he's still projecting through the roof. I mean, he played the entire second half in his last game en route to 43 minutes. So, with Lillard out, it's just his ball. And with the exception of the Whiteside buckets and whatever Carmelo can snag, it's really the C.J. McCollum show. Now, again, this is not easy playing against the Celtics. The Celtics certainly have tricks, and they play really good defense. So I wouldn't consider him a lock, but he still is, looking like an extremely, extremely strong play. As a matter of fact, if he goes lower owned because of what looks like a really high price, I think it could be a very, very strong tournament play. So I am going to plug him in for now. And what would be nice, once again, is if we could go ahead and get some correlation here. So the good thing is that there are some decent Boston plays here. Now, one of them, this is where you have to make your decisions, one of them was actually one of the strongest plays on the board at shooting guard, which would be Marcus Smart, right? Or the other one could be a very strong play at small forward, which would be either Hayward or Brown. You can just actually take your pick. For the purpose of this discussion, let's take the cheaper one because I think we're going to need that price savings. I don't think we're going to be able to do it anyway. So you see kind of what happens here. If you start wanting to play stuff like Giannis with Van Vliet and whatever, then you can't get all this in. Like you can't get Fox and McCollum and certainly not Sabonis in, right? At least 2,300 for a center, and we're going to need more than that. Let's put it that way. So we're talking plays, but yet at the same time, we do want to at least give you some direction of where you can go with the lineup here. So I think that something has to give as far as this type of construction. I think that you have to either, get rid of this Sabonis idea at power forward, right? And what you could do is kind of hope that Pascal, that would be really nice, right? If we could get Green out somehow. If Green doesn't play, and I could type, and we could put Pascal in here, then we probably end up get one of these centers that we end up wanting, which we're going to talk about again in just a minute. Let me just see really, really quickly if he fits the guy I was looking at. Almost. You'd almost get to what I wanted, which was going to be Steven Adams at center. And so we just have to just tweak just a little bit. But the good thing is if you're playing Rozier, the only reason I was playing Rozier would be if I could run it back with someone from Indiana, okay? So we could, if we wanted to, go back to the pray that, what's his name? Pray that Green doesn't play. We can get Bowman and Pascal, and then you can get in Steven Adams really easily, right? So, as I said, it would be nice to know this Draymond Green news before lock, because it allows you to be a lot more flexible with your lineups. Like I would love to have this. You want to know the truth? I would love to have a C.J. McCollum with Jaylen Brown, and then a Van Vliet with Siakam, and then this kind of stack with Giles, Fox, Bowman, and Pascal, and be able to plug in this Steven Adams play right here. This would be really strong. But all this is going to be dependent on what's his name, on Draymond Green being out. Okay. All right. So let's go. Next thing I want to do is let's go to power forward again, okay? Because I did mention that it would be a nice idea to take one of these Laker guys against the Pelicans. It's a huge, huge total. And I think it's logical to presume that one of these guys is going to go off. So let's take the obvious play. Let's take Davis. Davis is going to rate to be the top play, I think. And, against the Pelicans, there's some extra motivation, whatever. So let's say what we'd have to do if we put Davis in, right? Before I forget, let me save this lineup just in case. Now we don't need to save it. Maybe we'll see something better. So let's plug in Anthony Davis, all right? And we'll get back to center in a second because this is my sort of pay down center option. If you want to pay up, then you have to do some other things. So the first thing you'll notice is when you plug Davis in, then you're just way over. So what are the different things that we can do to get some salary, right? You think it's better to get rid of someone like McCollum. If you got rid of McCollum, probably still have to make another concession, right? Or is it better to just get rid of Giannis? And if you did that, then you could probably get a pretty decent play. Now, the problem is you're giving up, a good amount of points to do that, but I think that's all right. So we go back into small forward, and I mentioned earlier that obviously LeBron was a good play, but these Celtics make a lot of sense. So either Hayward or Brown, or the next place you want to go is probably Danilo Gallinari, right? So what's cool about that is if you went with Gallinari in this build, you get two guys out of this game. You get Gallinari and Steven Adams, right? So that works. Now, again, it would be nice to be able to get that. Well, you do still have the Celtic guy in, right? So if this works, so if you want to get Davis in, then you could do that, and you just have to pay down for Gallinari. Gallinari's never all that exciting, okay? So you don't want to do that. You could get some multiple guys out of this game, and you can play Carmelo. And Carmelo looks like a pretty strong play again today. So here you're getting a little bit of a stack situation with the Celtic game, right? So you're getting a McCollum with Anthony and Brown. Now you'll see also, remember in this build that we took out Giannis. So maybe if we could find a better play at shooting guard, maybe we don't need to play Fred VanVleet. Now, he's a good play, but let me suggest the possibility that maybe we screw that game and kind of overstack the Celtic game a little bit. So now what you could do, you put Marcus Smart in with Jaylen Brown. You're running it back with both these guys. And then what you could do is then you could come back up and play this, get just a little better point guard. You can get back up to Terry Rozier if you want, So I do think that this is, I'm going to save this one just for the hell of it. Let's put this in another one of these. Okay. Just so that I can just tweak this. So one position that we really haven't, gone into yet, we kind of touched on it a little bit, and I just gave it kind of a half-assed look, is the center position. So I had three centers. Well, one I kind of alluded to. So I would say a total of three centers, because it would be two centers and then two halves of centers. The two top plays, I think, are going to be Hassan Whiteside, which we didn't get to yet, and Steven Adams. And those are two completely different price points, right? You have a $9,600 center or you have a $6,500 center. The other guy I mentioned is that if you wanted to pivot off of Whiteside, then you could pay up an extra $1,000 for Jokic. That's a little dangerous, but I'll tell you, the Jokic did score like 80 fantasy points against Detroit, I think, in his last game or something like that. So, if this game could somehow stay close and he gets a full 35 minutes or something like that, Jokic could blow the doors off of Whiteside if it works out that way. I mean, it's not that the Celtics are that bad on defense. So Whiteside, and then there's Jokic if you want to pay up. And then this kind of nice mid-range value, which I alluded to, is Steven Adams. Now, I don't expect him to blow the doors off of anybody, but he certainly looks good enough. The other guy I should mention, again, he's not my type of player as far as GPPs go, but Wendell Carter Jr. is active again, and he's probably going to play. He's only 3,500. What you really have to do is one of two things. Either just like somehow figure out how many minutes he's going to play. What's it going to say here? He's questionable. I only am having him play like 20, 25 minutes coming off this injury. So I don't like playing guys with hard minutes limits. But if it's not a hard minutes limit, if they just say that he's going to be active, I mean, you kind of have to play him at 3,500, don't you? So that's another guy that just you have to watch the news on guys like that and just see if you could, get a sense for what kind of role he's going to have. He's going to just play off the bench. He's going to do whatever. But if he's starting, for example, like I think the 3,500 is a really good price tag for him. And then you could go ahead and get whatever you want. Then you can go back and get Giannis and everything, So and Anthony Davis. So that is definitely something to look for. Just for the hell of it, let me just see what would have to happen if I want to play Whiteside. So if I'm going to play Whiteside, then, well, I only got to give up 2,800. So I could either, what I could do? I could take Fox out of this lineup. I could obviously get rid of Davis. And I could certainly get rid of McCollum. And that makes sense, right? If I want to play, I don't want to play all three of those guys, Anthony and Whiteside and McCollum. So I can certainly get rid of that. And we could go to one of those other shooting guards I discussed. Let's review that for a second. I could go down to Victor Oladipo if he plays, something like that. I could play almost Devontae Graham. Actually, Oladipo would be interesting. Like if he is definitely playing, I mean, at 4,800, he'd be probably a very, very strong value, actually. So if I want to play Whiteside, boy, I could actually get away with this, couldn't I? I mean, I guess so. So what else can I do here? Like if I just want to keep this, if I want to play Whiteside, what is the one thing I can do to upgrade this a little bit? I want to keep Fox. Was there anybody at 5,900 or something like that? Yeah, I mean, I could. This is just so against what I like to do, though. I mean, I could get up to Bledsoe if I wanted. But coming off a back-to-back like that, I just back-to-back overtime. That's like so tough for me to do. It just goes against everything that I like. Can I move up at small forward a little bit? Yeah, you know what I could do? What I could do is I could do the double Celtic thing here and go Hayward and Brown. So there you can go Hayward, Brown, and Whiteside. And you got Smart. So you actually got 3 Celtics. Is that too many? Maybe. It might be too many. So then what's best? So if I have a 6,600 Hayward and a 6,200 Brown, what's the best way to get off of one of those guys? Well, I mean, I could go back to Gallinari again at 5,700. She seems so boring, though. I don't know. Maybe this is what I got to do. Can I get away 3 Celtics? 3 Celtics in a Portland stack with no McCollum? Seems like it's asking for it, but so we're not going to save this one. But that is certainly now you're going to see that this wins the entire thing, obviously. But as you can see, I mean, there are plays throughout this slate that you could kind of screw around with, and I really do think that I kind of encompassed everything. Let me just look again. So again, small forward, I did. LeBron, you could play him if you want. I kind of went over all the other guys that I really like. Power forward, the only guy I really didn't get into was Serge. So just to mention it, Serge Ibaka looks to be a pretty strong play. And again, if you want to play that Milwaukee stack, like if you wanted to, let's have some fun. Let's do this. So let's, instead of Davis, put Serge in over here, and then we swapped out one of these guys for Giannis. And then what you could do is maybe get so I want another Toronto guy. So it'd be either Van Vliet or Lowry. So let's just say that we did Van Vliet, just to not have too many Celtics in this build. Van Vliet. And we have to come up with $1,900 in savings here. Was there a cheaper small forward that we didn't talk about? Not really, except the Toscano guy. Giles is too expensive already. Maybe the Whiteside thing isn't going to work here. Or maybe this is the one where we have to kind of get rid of Fox, which I really don't want to do. I think that's a really, really strong play. So this is going to be a little difficult. But, you know, again, you could actually have an optimizer help you with this one. But, like, obviously, like, if you went Whiteside back to, you know, to Adams, then you could just do whatever you want, right? Then you could actually, you know what you could do? You can move this one. You can get Brogdon here. So that's the way you can get Serge in, along with Giannis and Van Vliet. And that's actually kind of interesting. So let's save this one. Just for to the hell. All right. So I guess that's pretty much it. I do think that it's a very easy slate to build lineups that you're going to be happy with, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good slate, because everybody's going to be happy with their lineups, I think. But as you can see, just hand building these things with very reasonable plays, I was able to get, you know, pretty good lineups that I feel comfortable with. And it's not like they're all, you know, the ultra chalk at every position. I mean, there are certain pivots in here. But I don't know. I think this is at least a good start. And remember that you got to really watch for that that Golden State news to see whether you could play all these Pascals and who else did I say? I forget already. Bowman to some extent. But that's going to drive a little bit of the way my construction is going to go. I guess that's it. I'll be back in a little bit, I think, with a DraftKings review.